Hey everyone, before we get started, I wanted to address a few things. First, this is the final chapter of the book, and I thank you very much for sticking with me these few years as I battled life alongside the effort. I'm thankful to the Lord our God for allowing me the opportunity to write and share at this capacity, and I look forward to whatever else He has in store for me and you too. This is the beginning of a prayerfully long journey with writing, and I have a few things I would like to make mention here. I will be working on a physical copy of this and future books. The process is a tedious one, and I'm working with limited time for now, but they will be available when possible. I plan on having a separate website made where you'll be able to find all of my work so that I don't have to rely on third-party apps and interests. If you followed along with me this long, then you know that I'm pretty inconsistent at times. I plan on changing how I write and release chapters of my work to avoid long downtimes. I ask that you continue to provide feedback and support as I work within my limitations. If you would like to email me, you can do so at wackwitwes@gmail.com for now. I'll change it later, but for now, that's the best email I got. Follow me on all the other platforms I mentioned as well. X @The Writer Wesley, Podbean and YouTube @Wesley The Writer, and please share with me what you think. I value honest input and criticism, so don't think that you'll hurt my feelings or anything. I think that's it for now. Let's finish this book off right with its last intro. Man, I feel great right now. South, the series, is an audiobook production. It contains subject material not suited for a younger audience. Listener discretion is advised. South, the Pinewood High School incident, is the telling of an unfortunate soul, a young girl lost to the whims of society. We follow the story of Cassidy Learman, a Pinewood High School student, as she finds herself stumbling down a dark and dangerous path. In Allura Shores, corporations control your every thought. It is a place where governments decide where you live and who you talk to, where the best parts of humanity are stripped away, turning the innocent into the monsters we fear the most. The path of darkness is broad and inviting, a banquet of thieves ready to take all you have. Hold true to your beliefs. If you are not careful, someone will replace them with their own. In the previous chapter, we return to following Cassidy as she hides away deep in the Pinewood forest to escape from the aftermath of her confrontation with Penelope. Based on her own self-reflections, it is clear that she is not doing too well. The events of the last few months weighing greatly on her conscience. Not knowing what to do with herself, she decides to finally listen to her voicemails, the impact of which leads to tears and thoughts of turning herself in. As if to sense her desperation, Jerry enters the conversation and tries her best to influence the weary girl's final decision. In the end, Jerry is successful, and Cassidy reaffirms her commitment to seeing the destruction of the powers that she feels have ruined her life. In the lower shores, there is no telling what powers may be at play, and unfortunately for Cassidy Learman, it would appear that she has chosen to be a pawn. How she plans to enact her revenge is anyone's guess at this point. So let's jump back into the tale and see what both she and Jerry have cooked up for the people of Pinewood. Hey guys, it's Mandy. I hope you missed me because I missed you. Amanda Watkins, known for being the loudest person in the room, didn't hold back as she talked to her 13,000 followers on Hunter. She loved vlogging her experiences whenever she could get the chance, and that day was no exception. The Pinewood High School homecoming game was mere hours away, and there were a litany of things that needed to be done before she would dare show her face in public. First on the list was making sure that she was given the clear to be out a little later than normal, a plea she was sure was going to fall on her father's deaf ears, but she could possibly sway her mother to her side. "Please, Mom." Mandy's mom was sitting in her bedroom in front of a vanity, applying makeup as her attempts seemed to miss their mark. "You already know what your dad is going to say, Amanda. I'll tell you what, though. If you promise to do the shopping and my other chores this weekend, I might be able to help him forget it." "Ew, Mom." Mandy stuck her tongue out at the camera in secret as her mom refocused on getting ready for work. "Mom, can I use the cardigan too? I need to get a few things." "You're so getting a job once you graduate." Her mom's annoyance at the request caused Mandy to cross her fingers for the camera. "I guess since you'll be doing all the work this weekend, you can have a little fun tonight. Don't go crazy though, kid. The limit is 200, okay?" "Works for me. Thanks, Mom." Mandy made sure to hug her mother, to which her mother looked away sarcastically, the two revealing their relationship to Mandy's viewers. When she had gotten what she wanted from the exchange, Mandy made her way through her family's suburban home to explain the rest of her day. She was going to meet up with her best friends, Sarah Hoggins and Lauren Butler, to get the final prep done on their outfits while gossiping along the way. Mandy wasn't in a relationship, and the other girls knew that, but they felt no sympathy for her plight, choosing to tease her for her loneliness rather than empathize with her. After debriefing her followers, she cut the camera to get ready to meet them. When the camera cut back on, Mandy was in her car, driving to the meetup location. The girls had decided to get lunch at a diner in South Pinewood, and without discussing it, Mandy knew she was going to be fronting the bill. Although she was given access to the card, She wanted to try saving whatever funds she could. The shopping trip had just started, and she was on a mission to get what she wanted. The accessories her and the other girls were going to go shopping for were pretty pricey, and they needed to be mindful. They had a general idea what they were going to wear already, but there were a few things that she wanted to get that would make her stand out a little more. And what does Little Miss Bankroll want to get that she doesn't already have? Sarah glanced at her while shoveling some of the nachos from her plate into her mouth. "You're always so rude, Sarah," Lauren said as she sipped some of her sweet tea. "You know she can still make you pay for your own food, right?" There was a brief silence as Sarah thought on what she would need to do to prevent such a tragedy. Mandy smirked as she took a sip of her drink as well, her other hand holding her phone to capture the moment. Their meeting went much like how their other ones went, each of them sharing their week with each other, while bringing up Lauren's and Sarah's relationships respectively. When it was Mandy's turn, she looked to her camera again and began to monologue on her misfortune of being single. "You know," Lauren wanted to relieve her best friend of her burden, "tonight's going to be a good opportunity to meet some of the guys on the team. Me and Sarah already had some luck finding Michael and Chris, so who knows? Maybe we can get one of them to send a guy your way." "When you put it like that, it makes me seem like a loser." Mandy dropped her head onto the table. "I wouldn't say that." Sarah patted her head. "Think about it like your big sister's helping you out a little." The girls continued on with their meal and conversation for a little longer, until Lauren began talking about some of the after parties being held throughout the city. From her contacts, she was invited to a few that she wanted to go to, but Mandy found herself feeling a little apprehensive. Sarah picked up on her reservations and instantly knew why. It wasn't like they had forgotten who they were missing from their gaggle. It was the only one who would always get them into the wildest parties their side of Pinewood. Before Mandy could respond, Sarah decided to bring it up. "I know how you feel about what happened to her, Mandy." The other girls aimed their attention to their memories. "She was always dragging us around with her to the craziest parties. I wish she was still here too." "All the more reason for us to be a little more careful, right?" Mandy looked at her. "It was so random. I don't think there was a way for her to avoid it." Lauren looked away from the group to gather what to say next. "Stay safe, they say." Sarah folded her arms. "Why does it have to be this way? Why can't we just enjoy ourselves without wondering if we're going to be kidnapped and assaulted? Ugh, men are the worst." "My dad said that we should always expect the worst from everyone, no matter who it is." Mandy shared her wisdom. "Amber, she played too loose with the rules, you know?" "Maybe." Sarah stood by her statement. "I talked to her the night before it happened." Lauren tossed a grenade into their conversation. "She sounded like she was scared of something." "What?" Sarah's eyes were as wide as Mandy's mouth as they gaped at her. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Lauren played with her tea. "She made me swear, you know? She was talking about how she felt scared." She said something about that freak, Cassidy Learman, about how they fought again or something. She didn't share much, but it sounded like she wanted to warn me about her. You heard that she's wanted for murder now, right? The other girls nodded. I knew she was going to end up doing something like that. Her whole family is weird. Her dad was a political hack that tried keeping jobs from Pinewood. But luckily, he was taken care of by that truck. That's so mean, Sarah. Lauren expressed slight discomfort with the accusation. They're always telling one side of the story on the news anyway. How would you know what that man was doing? It doesn't change the fact that our friend is gone now. Sarah took a sip of her drink before continuing. Politics aside, that Cassidy girl deserves what's coming to her. I can't believe we live with someone that would do something so vile. I got a link from one of the boys at school that showed the uncensored pics of that murder scene. That girl was slashed open 8 ways to Sunday, but the worst part were the symbols on the walls. It was like looking at a horror movie set, witchy symbols and all. They were witches, you know. Mandy chimed in. I remember Amber talking to me about her. I don't think she had anything to do with it, but she was spotted close to where they found her head. It's weird, but it could have been like some ritual or something, right? There was a report about her a month or so ago, too, remember? She killed a horse with that coven and was completely bugged out. It might have been a coincidence, but it all seems to be adding up, you know? The mood became stale as the girls allowed the memory of their fourth friend to haunt them in the diner. Before the entire evening was ruined, Mandy managed to bring the life back to the conversation by reminding them about their promise to find her a boyfriend by the night's end. Although, through her mannerisms expressed across the camera, she really didn't like meeting people randomly. She'd do anything, however, to keep the excitement of the night going. They were young and needed to enjoy themselves more. The world and its troubles were a consequence of existence, and nothing was going to change about that. They could, and were definitely going to, have a good time in the moment. Mandy's shopping trip continued for the rest of the afternoon, the girls wrapping up their expedition with a trip to a well-known frozen yogurt spot near the border of Pinewood. They decided to head back to her house, only because her house was the closest to the school, each of them gleeful with the expectation of preparing for the night. Mandy couldn't help but allow the camera to roll as she and her friends shared their thoughts and feelings to her audience. Before she turned the camera off again, she made sure to get a shot of them grouped up, making gestures and hand signs to signify to the masses that they were a unit. When the camera was turned back on, Mandy and the other girls were walking towards the old school stadium. It was a detached structure situated on an entirely different block from the main high school, which meant that they would have to park her car at the school and walk a bit. That never bothered her in the past, but thanks to the recent influx of attendees, the girls were feeling the stress of being crowded. They managed to get into the flow of the large gathering, Sarah choosing to step out in front to act as a pseudo-battering ram if needed. Lauren stayed close to Mandy and held onto her arm as they braved the onslaught, Mandy opting to capture the large amount of people in her video, a majority of the journey. It took them nearly 15 minutes, something Mandy mentioned took a lot longer than the original 6 or so. But when they arrived to the ticket booth, they were greeted with an impossible line. The steel fencing that kept the attendees from skipping the ticket booth made for a good time killer. The growing crowd of people standing around being prevented in was like looking at a herd of cattle being routed to whatever end the stadium security designated. Sarah managed to return to the other girls before they were completely separated, and, after a few minutes of standing still, began to grow restless. Lauren began surfing Hunter, while Mandy captured the moment, the faces of happy families and friends coming together to celebrate their school. "I can't take this anymore," Sarah managed to allow her impatience to take over. "I'll be back." Before Mandy could figure out what her best friend was going to do, she was absorbed into the gathering of souls. The loss of Sarah made Lauren link arms with her as the line inched forward a little. Neither of them wanted to be stuck in line, but for Sarah to abandon them like that was almost out of character. Whatever the plan would be for them moving forward, Mandy felt like they would need to work a little harder to meet back up with all of the people in their way. Before she could make her plan to regroup, however, Sarah called to them from near the edge of the administration's intake gate. Mandy led Lauren through the crowd toward Sarah's voice, and when they were just a few people shy of her, she noticed a taller person standing at her side. When they reached their third member, Mandy instantly knew who it was that Sarah managed to contact. "Chris!" Mandy gushed as she tried her hardest not to make Sarah jealous. "Looks like you guys need some help," he said as he helped them enter the stadium from the side gate. "Took you long enough." Lauren smirked. "Where's Michael at? He hasn't texted me yet." "Coach has the starting guys running drills to warm up. We can't bring our phones on the field, but I'm smarter than the average player." Chris began to lead them from the side of the stadium where the maintenance access was to the field. During their walk, Mandy aimed the camera at all of them, choosing to set their backstage tour in digital stone. She managed to catch Sarah and Chris share a quick kiss before continuing arm in arm towards their goal. At the same time, she managed to catch Lauren scoff to herself at the sight, the girl's jealousy registering to Mandy as petty in comparison to her own loneliness. When they reached the field, Chris gave Sarah another kiss before returning to the benches with the team. Lauren, emboldened by Sarah's show of affection, decided to scour the area for Michael. "Jealousy only makes you uglier, sis," Sarah taunted, as Lauren made an offensive gesture before separating. "Whatever. Come on, Mandy. Let's find somewhere with a good view." Sarah led Mandy past the nearby bleachers, through the influx of fellow crowd members, and arrived at a decent spot towards the upper rows of seats. They settled by taking a seat on the cold metal benches and huddled up to warm themselves against each other. The game wasn't going to start for at least another 30 minutes, so they had enough time to get up and explore if they wanted. They, instead, chose to chill out and chat a little, Sarah using the time to reflect on everything that had happened to them recently. "It's just been hard, you know," Sarah let out a sigh as they listened to the marching band tune their instruments and practice routines. We've been through so much in a short time. The world feels like a different place to me sometimes. If it wasn't for Chris, I don't think I'd feel normal. I get it, I think, Mandy said as she held her phone away from them using a selfie stick. It's weird how fast time moves, right? I remember when we first met, civics class in 7th grade. You were such a pain to deal with. Sarah fell into Mandy to give her a light shove before allowing her head to rest on her shoulder a while. Mandy returned the gesture by placing her head on her friend's and allowed the moment to be documented for a while until she assumed the moment was over. When she pulled away her head, however, Sarah was still stuck in pose, a shade of sorrow contrasting negatively to the surrounding festivities. What if we're next? What? Mandy could barely hear her over the sound of a drummer getting too involved with his routine. Nothing. Sarah sat herself upright and smiled into the camera before holding her stomach in a dramatic display. I wish we would have snuck in some snacks. There's no way I'm paying an arm and leg for a hot dog. You know we get a discount for being students, right? Mandy didn't think she needed to remind her of that. Besides, I don't think you want to eat that stuff anyway. It's all the same stuff they're feeding us in the cafeteria. Ugh, so what? I'm hungry. Sarah reminded Mandy why they were the best friends of the group by pretending she was a monster with a need to feed. The two girls played out their dramatic rendition a bit, taking to their feet to leave their seats and head towards the concession stand. Within moments, they were approaching the stand, off to the opposite side of the football field, while taking in more of the atmosphere of the night. Mandy was enjoying herself, her showcase to the camera detailing how spirited and alive everyone was. She paused when she smelled it. The smell of the food was so intoxicating that even she was ready to abandon her reservations about it. The only thing that managed to keep her from giving in, however, was the sight of the girls serving it. Sarah, wait. She didn't want to alarm her friend too much, but it couldn't wait. Look who's serving the food. Yikes. Sarah slowed her approach to match Mandy's speed. There they were, the witches of Pinewood High School, each of them looking like they owned a part of the school in their own right, their aura betraying their innocent facade as poison, like the rumors suggested. There was one of them that she despised the most, though, the one that enjoyed bullying her when she was younger, but had since moved on to terrorizing other prey. Mandy made sure to detail her frustration with the group to her audience before looking to Sarah to figure out what it was she wanted to do. Her bestie, however, didn't hold her same reservations with the group and decided that her stomach was more valuable than Mandy's past preteen drama. When they arrived at the stall, they were instantly approached by the one they called Tara. Hey girls, what you want? For being a social pariah, the girls seemed pleasant enough. Food. Sarah seemed to have forgotten about her complaint on prices. It didn't take much time for them to be served their food. 4 hot dogs with fries, 2 large cheese sauces, and 2 drinks that at first were smalls, but was upgraded by their server with a wink. The interaction was as standard as someone who didn't know who they were could be. The same normal energy carried on to the register, where Mandy expected to pay a pretty large amount despite their touted discount. In fact, it had seemed that their discount was greater than either of them expected, as, when she prepared to pay, Tara held her hand out to her in refusal. "You're both students, right?" The gentle witch eased the confusion between them with the warmest smile Mandy had ever seen. "It's all free for you." "Really?" Mandy looked to Sarah to confirm that she was hearing the witch right. They focused on taking their food. Sarah was made to hold the majority of it for the walk back, and retreated from the confrontation after thanking their kind hostess. Mandy took a glimpse at the girls one last time when they were a little distance away and allowed her thoughts to spill over to her vlog. It was odd that they were getting preferential treatment, even for being students, and it felt like they were being used to some end, whatever that was, being too much for Mandy to suffer at that time. Before refocusing her effort to return to the bleachers, she managed to see the one she remembered looking at her briefly. She allowed her audience to witness her feelings about the encounter. "I don't care if she sees it. I was wronged, okay?" Mandy got a bit sassy with her recount of the past. "I'm calling you out for bullying me, Heather Price." "Let it go, girl." Sarah managed to get the words out of her maw as she finished some of the hot dog she was able to access without using her hands. "You have no reason to let some weird girl live rent-free in your head. Come on, let's hurry up to our seats before we have actual problems. If I can't see my man play, then I'm fighting you." The football game was underway. An additional 10 minutes granted as a grace period for the extra guests to get settled, and the girls made sure to express themselves loudly and kind. They were playing a rival school that, for the equivalent of effort in their cheering, were the epitome of evil. The people in attendance were as equally loud and excited, their voices echoing further into the darkened sky, enveloping them in the night. The bright stadium lights did nothing but give them assurance that they were on the right side of history, the life force of several hundred attendees screaming their cadence into the hearts of the late teen-aged players on both ends of the field. The moment was as magical as Mandy had hoped, and she was doing her part to capture all of it. Despite all the school spirit, however, their beloved team began to lose the advantage after the first quarter of the game. Cheers turned to boos and raised fists as some of the plays were flagged by the referees. Other plays ended in disaster as fumbles were retrieved by the visiting team, much to the anger of the parents of the boys who let the ball slip. It was a duality that, under academic observation, one would gather much data on the research in human behavior. Mandy played with the camera a few times through the process to catch a few of her good sides before allowing herself to catch the final big play before halftime began. Up on the line was Michael, with Chris playing quarterback. Mandy managed to get a good shot of the ball snapping into his hands as the play began, a dance of aggression and effort, keeping the watcher engaged with bated breath. The way both boys moved in unison to make the play work had everyone standing from their seats, Michael twisting himself through the line to catch the perfect spiral of a ball Chris sent him. Lauren nearly ruining her voice as she screamed for her boyfriend while he ran, his shorter stature not barring him from darting past the defenses of the visiting team and entering the end zone. Everyone joined Michael's girlfriend in screaming and shouting, celebrating the now tied score of 15. Once the whistle blew for a halftime, everyone took the opportunity before the band began their performance to stretch their legs. Mandy faced the camera to her and her best friends to figure out what they were going to do. They both wanted to see if they could approach their boyfriends, and without listening to her protest, she was dragged away to the sidelines. They hurtled over the other people crowding the base of the bleachers and managed to reach the fence that separated the audience from the players. As the other girls managed to strike up conversations with their significant others, Mandy allowed her third wheel syndrome to kick in. "Hey, I'm going to..." She realized they weren't listening to her. "I'll just be over there. And this is why I don't hang out with you too often." She walked through the thickened crowd back towards the concession stand. She didn't know why she would subject herself to the abuse of staring at her old bully, but she didn't want to sit in the bleachers alone. She was just short of the stand, and, just like before, her nostrils were filled with the enticing scent of cooked beef and onions. The trio being fulfilled with the addition of hot nacho cheese. It was too much to ignore, even with the extra long line that had formed, stretching back towards where she came from. Before she could get in the line to order herself something else, she was approached by someone she didn't know that well, but had seen her in school on multiple occasions. "You look a little lost, sweetie. Need some help?" Hi, Miss Hadley." She felt herself take a step back away from the mysterious woman. "That's a long line, huh?" Miss Hadley looked at the obedient game attendees. "What's your name? I've seen you in the school halls, but we haven't had the chance to talk." "I'm Amanda, ma'am." Mandy's nervousness didn't keep her from recording the raven-haired woman. "I see that you like to capture the moment." Miss Hadley continued to examine her. "You're pretty popular with the girls online, right? Tell me, why do you do it?" I don't know. I just like it. At least the people that watch me like it." Mandy could tell just how out of depth she was in comparison to the woman. "You're familiar with us witches, right? There's no need to act shy, Mandy." Miss Hadley took a step towards her prey. "I can tell that you're like many of the girls with talent. You have so much potential, but you hide it behind uncertainty and doubt. My daughters are bold and live their lives to the fullest. To be honest, I was drawn to you because of that potential. I can sense it in you. You know Heather, right?" Yeah." Mandy could feel her heart beat a little faster. "Tell you what, come with me." The forwardness of the woman before her was something akin to whiplash. "Let's skip the formalities and talk a little about your work. You must want to find out how to grow what you do into something larger, right? That's what gives you power in the world now. How many followers you have." Lydia grabbed Mandy's hand and began to lead her to the concession stand. Before she could be taken, however, horns and percussion could be heard from the field, signifying that the halftime show was underway. Mandy managed to free herself from the woman's grip during the distraction and apologized, a gut reaction to the quick flash of scorn that shot from her would-be kidnapper. There was no telling what was awaiting her if she allowed herself to be inducted in the witch cult, and she knew she needed to get as far from the desperate woman as possible. I have to meet back up with my friends. Thanks anyway. Mandy made sure to backpedal far enough away before turning her back on the forward teacher. Mandy's only thought was to make sure she was well enough away to avoid being hexed. Turning on her heel and darting towards the space underneath the bleachers, a move she assumed appropriate to break the teacher's line of sight. When she felt like she was in the clear, she took a moment to catch her breath before confessing her fear to the camera in her hand. I was legit about to be abducted. There was no sarcasm to be had in her voice. What is going on with this place? There wasn't a lot of foot traffic in the large space under the bleachers. She didn't know where else to go since she didn't want to be seen by the leader of the witches, so she resigned to her fate of walking the darkened space. Not only was there less people, but the noise of the game was significantly reduced in turn, allowing her to talk to her phone a bit better. She went on about the encounter with the witches and how she would tell Sarah and Lauren when she got back to them. She knew that they were stronger when together, and she longed to feel something other than in danger. There didn't appear to be a proper way to leave from under the bleachers the way she was walking, however, and she decided to turn away when she spotted someone off in the furthest corner of the space. Hello? Mandy called out to the figure. Hey, are you okay? She turned on the flashlight from her phone and aimed it in the person's direction, the black mass becoming slightly illuminated and revealing its form to be that of a girl. Mandy drew closer and found that it was someone she knew, albeit not that well. She felt her stomach tighten as she realized who it was. The desire to flee and call the police began to mount, but so too did her curiosity. The girl looked terrible and a bit frightened, a nest for hair and eyes that could stab you. As Mandy got closer to the cloak-wearing creature, it made the quickest dash towards her, stopping just as Mandy fell to the ground while trying to escape. Hey, relax. She had hoped the girl would listen to reason. I know who you are. You're Cassidy, right? Cassidy Learman? I know Amber Long. Knew her, at least. I'm Mandy. The girl tilted her head and walked dangerously close up to her. As Mandy watched the girl's actions, she began to scoot back towards the way she'd entered the space. Before she could try to make a run for it, Cassidy held out a hand towards her in a gesture to help her up. Confused, Mandy took the wretch by the hand and stood to meet her hard gaze, both of them unsure as to how to proceed with the pending conversation. After a moment, Cassidy turned to walk away from her, but Mandy decided to pry further. What are you doing back here? Her question stopped Cassidy in her tracks. You're missing out on a good game, you know? Waiting. It seemed like it was hard for her to speak. For what? Mandy made sure to examine her surroundings. They have good food at the concession stand if you're hungry. Cassidy turned back to face Mandy and, for a moment, looked as though she would take her up on the offer. Mandy slowly held out a hand to Cassidy as an invitation, but her opponent didn't budge, choosing to battle whatever was going on in her head rather than acknowledge the attempt. Mandy retracted her hand and allowed the cheering of the crowd to fill the space before their conversation continued. I'm tired, Cassidy said finally. You should go home then, Mandy began to understand. You don't have to fight it, you know. I have to. She wasn't backing down. They took too much. That's not how things work, Cassidy, Mandy pleaded. I know why you're here. I knew her too. Amber was... Stop saying her name! Cassidy's roar almost made Mandy buckle at the knees. The wild girl managed to close whatever distance was between them quicker than Mandy could react, the sudden attack causing her to scream as she felt Cassidy's rough hands grip her neck. She was held in front of the brutish girl for a moment before she saw Cassidy tell an invisible entity to not kill her. It obeyed her and let Mandy go free, at least for the moment, before walking away from the confrontation. Mandy didn't allow the girl to go on in peace, however, and decided to follow behind her a little. Cassidy stopped her walking and waited a bit before turning back to intimidate her. But Mandy was too determined to stop whatever it was that had the girl bound. Was it you? Mandy asked bluntly, the thought of getting a true confession from Cassidy not seeming plausible. Did you kill Amber? In a turn, Cassidy's face fell from aggression to sadness, the wall holding back her true feelings falling near instantly at the accusation. I can't let them get away with it. Who? Mandy couldn't look into her mind. If it wasn't you, then who was it? I can help you, Cassidy. Just tell me what happened. Are they here? Yes. Cassidy relented as she wiped her face of the pain in her heart. They're all here. They won't leave me alone. I can hear them in my head, laughing at me as they beat me, mocking me as I lay dying. I hate them. I hate them. I'll kill them. You don't have to kill anyone, Cassidy. Mandy went for her hand again. We'll tell the police and get you home. We can work it out with everything that happened to you, okay? I'll do what I can to help you, but we can't do that if you start killing people. We can work together to tell people the truth. Look at me, Cassidy. I have the audience, and you have a story to tell. We can change your story around, but you have to. You sound like her. Cassidy smiled, finally, and showed a glimpse of the girl she used to be. A girl that could have been Mandy's friend if they'd been properly introduced. No wonder you were friends. Although Mandy's hand was reaching to her, Cassidy didn't accept it. Her sad eyes stuck on the goal she'd set for herself. They stood apart from each other, polar opposites in contrast, both holding on to their convictions and choices. They weren't willing to compromise, even in light of the chaos storming around them. Another round of cheering echoed from the people as the band ended their performance and the players returned to the field, prompting Mandy to lower her hand again. A cell phone rang randomly from under Cassidy's cloak, and when she answered it, the girl nodded blankly before giving a simple, "Okay," and ending the call. Cassidy's face grew deathly serious as she stared at the ground, Mandy's gut telling her that whatever the call was about, it wasn't anything good. "Can you do me a favor, Mandy?" Cassidy gave a shallow smile as she revealed what was under her cloak. "Go home. Live for both of us, okay?" Mandy's breath quickened as she stared death in the face. She didn't stay to try convincing the girl any longer, her mind solely on surviving what was about to happen. She sprinted past the gate she passed when she entered the space under the bleachers, and instead of leaving, she decided to try saving her best friends. She dashed past the crowd of attendees and up to the bleachers where she spotted them. She began climbing the many steps in their direction, tripping over an older man and his family and sending their newly acquired food to the bleacher floor. "Whoa!" The man of the family tried to keep his cool. "Are you okay?" "Get out," Mandy said as she gathered herself. "Get out, now!" She left them without elaborating further, her hope being that they'd listen to their instincts and protect the ones they loved. She managed to reach halfway up the mound of metal before needing to climb over another group of people, the effort being smoother than it was before. She was nearly at them when Sarah turned her head to acknowledge her, a boon she didn't take lightly. She waved them down as frantically as she could, as wild and loudly as she could get above the noise of the cheering crowds. It didn't seem like her friends got the message, though, the girls' attention being returned to the events unfolding on the football field. Mandy gave up on trying to wave them down and began to fight through the crowd again, tripping and falling to the cold metal seats when she tried to jump over some empty spots. She hit her head, but that wasn't important, her effort finally being acknowledged by her best friends. They got up and came to her, although with a bit of effort, picking her up and checking on her wound to her disapproval. "Listen to me," Mandy managed to get them to stop fiddling with her bleeding forehead. "We have to get out of here." What happened, Mandy?" Lauren asked as she began searching her purse for something to help with Mandy's cut. "Lydia!" A cry from far off cut through the noise of the game with ease. It was too late. Mandy looked past her friends and saw Cassidy in the bleachers facing the woman she was nearly taken by earlier. The moment seemed to last forever, time slowing to allow her to witness one witch stare down the other. Miss Lydia Hadley, after losing the staring contest, made a move to flee her impending doom, the effort not amounting to much thanks to the sheer number of people surrounding her. Mandy's heart sank as she showed her followers her last moments, the panic of a crowd of people fleeing a girl ready to end their lives. Screams erupted from where the confrontation began, and Mandy watched Cassidy Learman, the girl who she knew only in passing, raise her arm in the air, show the gathered souls the instrument of their demise, and pull the trigger.